Thank you, Lynn, and thank you all for being in Louisville this week for CNU 27. We hope that you enjoy yourself and that you take in all the city has to offer. And as you saw from Lewis, we do take seriously what we believe is the true theme of this conference, where new urbanism meets the new urbanism. Thank you. So when Lynn and David and I first began discussions about the opening plenary session, we really wanted to begin with a discussion of a topic that is especially meaningful to have take place during CNU's visit to Louisville, something that is part of the DNA of this community. And very quickly, the issue of compassion and what it means to be a compassionate city rose to the top. This has been a key element of Mayor Fisher's goals for the city ever since he took office in 2011. But as he will explain in his comments in a few minutes, Greg's focus on Louisville as a compassionate city was in many ways inspired by Muhammad Ali and the work of the Ali Center here in Louisville. So it made sense to invite Lonnie Ali and ask her if she would address you tonight. Thankfully, she graciously accepted. It is a distinct honor and privilege for me to be standing here this evening introducing Lonnie Ali, but it pales in comparison in both honor and privilege that was afforded to me in having the opportunity to work closely with Lonnie Muhammad on the development of the Muhammad Ali Center, something that began in 1997 and has turned into more than a two-decade friendship. It has been, without a doubt, the most remarkable and rewarding experience of my professional career. So I suspect all of you here, if you've been citizens of planet Earth this last half-century, know quite a lot about Muhammad Ali, a lot of it actually from Muhammad Ali. But what about Lonnie Ali? Well, Lonnie first met Muhammad in 1963 as the 21-year-old Cassius Clay held court among the children on the front porch of his parents' home next door to Lonnie's home. As you can see here, that's Lonnie in the middle at age 6. Shy, and as she said, scared to death, Cassius playfully told her that one day he would marry her. 23 years later, he did. And that was no doubt the best decision that Muhammad Ali ever made. Since their marriage in 1986, Lonnie, who holds a degree in psychology from Vanderbilt University and an MBA from UCLA, has not only been the person who has managed Ali's business interests, but she was Muhammad's true soul partner in every imaginable way. She's a remarkable person in her own right, a leading advocate for Parkinson's research, for the empowerment of women, for many other causes. She has been described as the perfect partner of the most recognized man on the planet. And that is because, as someone close to them once said, quote, "She understands far better than anyone that Muhammad Ali didn't just belong to her, he belonged to the entire world." And we all need to thank her for sharing him with all of us. Since Muhammad's death in 2016, Lonnie has remained involved in ensuring that the spirit of Muhammad Ali continues to inspire people, especially our younger generations, across the world, through the Ali Center Humanitarian Awards and through the Generation Ali Initiative and a variety of other ways. Generation Ali is a global movement that inspires a new generation of leaders, both young and young at heart, to achieve greatness on their own at a local level, national level, or a global level, to find their own voices, their own passion, their own compassion. The grassroots movement draws its inspiration from Muhammad Ali's 6 core principles: confidence, conviction, dedication, giving, respect, and spirituality. And so just before Lonnie comes up, please indulge me for one more moment, for one personal note, if I may. All of us in this room this evening, I suspect, have worked on projects during our lives and careers that we're especially proud of. They may have been interesting, they may have challenged us, and hopefully they made our communities better places to live and to thrive. But it is quite unusual to be involved in a project that helped make each of us personally a better person, more caring, more respectful of others, more giving, more compassionate. Working on the Ali Center with Lonnie Muhammad had that impact on me by seeing every day and being inspired every day by the example they set and their impact on others. Often this happened without a word being said. It was remarkable. It was magical. If you visit the Ali Center, you'll hear Howard Bingham, Muhammad and Lonnie's long-term friend, say, "I love walking behind Muhammad and watching how he interacts with people. He literally lifts them up." No truer words were ever spoken. Lonnie and Muhammad Ali lifted me up, and the experience of knowing them has made me a better person as a result of it. And for that, I am eternally grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lonnie Ali.
Good evening. Thank you, Barry. It's been a real pleasure to be here in Louisville with all of you, and especially heartwarming to share this stage with Mayor Fisher, who you will hear from in a little bit, and discuss a topic that is very close to both of our hearts. I suspect it's rather unusual for this audience to hear from someone like me, as I don't often address primarily people who are primarily focused on city design. But when Barry first approached me, and then Lynn, to address the Congress on Louisville as a city of compassion, and then explained your mission and your work, it suddenly felt like an important opportunity for a couple of reasons. First, it's an opportunity to talk about one of the things that makes Louisville special. Since you will be spending the next few days here, I think you will figure that out too. Louisville is the place where Muhammad and I both grew up, where we spent years developing the Muhammad Ali Center, and where Muhammad now rests in peace. It is in many ways a special place, certainly for me. Second, this platform provides me an opportunity to talk about one particular aspect of what brings a place together, a city together, a community together. And this, after all, is what cities are all about. It's about interacting with each other, about communitas, which literally means a place where people treat each other equally. And if you know anything about Muhammad, you will know that Muhammad treated everyone exactly the same way, no matter their place in the world, their status, their politics, their color, or their religion. His connection was one of human being to another. No matter our differences, he recognized that we share human values, aspirations, and ideally, respect for one another. In researching today's address, it became clear that many of the principles of new urbanism relate to this aspect of community, of communitas. One of the CNU principles is to bring people of diverse ages, races, and incomes into daily interaction, strengthening the personal and civic bonds essential to an authentic community. Let me emphasize, strengthening the personal and civic bonds essential to an authentic community. I might suggest that this is also essential to a compassionate community as well. While reviewing elements of city design and new urbanism, I was especially taken with the focus of walkability, on front porches and front doors, a place to interact with your neighbors. That was the way Muhammad grew up, with walkability in his neighborhood, with houses with front doors and front porches, where inevitably families and neighbors would gather at various points during the day. As a child and a young adult, Muhammad, then Cassius, liked visiting his neighbors and hanging out on their front porches. He didn't find a door that he would not knock on or ring a doorbell to bring people out. It helped shape his approach to the world going forward. Muhammad was, I guess you might say, a human front porch. He always focused on the world in front of him, or around him, and his front door, as you might say, it was always open. To a few people, a few hundred, or even a few thousand. It depended on the day. For me, a good day was a few. But if he had his way, he would literally have interacted with every person in the world. And if you ever walked down a street with him, and Barry had this opportunity, no matter how empty or desolate the walk began, you would be amazed as to the life that erupted on that street by the time he reached the end of it. Muhammad engendered his own street life, so I guess perhaps he should be made an honorary new urbanist. Yeah. He would think so. But what I really want to discuss with you tonight is the concept of compassion, what it means to Muhammad Nye and how important it is to his legacy. Muhammad may have been known in this country primarily as a famous athlete, or as he tended to put it himself, the greatest. But across the world, he is known as much, if not more, as a humanitarian. Some of you might ask, why is that? Well, it's because he was one of the few people on earth who was able to touch people of all kinds, from the heart, with a heartfelt compassion and the belief that everyone shares a common humanity. With his fame and connection to people across the globe, it brought offers to build a museum, show places, extolling his accomplishments from cities all over the world. But Muhammad and I wanted none of that. We wanted to create a place that would inspire people from all over the world to become the best that they could be, to have the courage and dedication and the conviction to make themselves better people, no matter their station in life. Muhammad certainly had the ability to inspire people, not by focusing on his fame, but rather on the principles and the values that guided his life, principles that continue even after he is gone. This focus and inspiration became the impetus for the development of the Muhammad Ali Center. And most importantly of all, it absolutely had to be located here in Louisville, the place where he grew up, the place that shaped his values, the place that provided the basis for who he was to become, the place that enabled a skinny little boy with no boxing skills to become the most recognized human being on the face of the earth. Returning to Louisville to build the Ali Center embodied the idea that no matter where you live, because in truth, that's just geography, no matter your station in life, because that's something you can't always control, you can follow your heart and your values and become as great as you can be. Maybe not as great or famous as Muhammad, but the best version of yourself. That's what Muhammad did. He became the best version of himself. And the best version of yourself is to be kind, compassionate, and respectful to those others that share your space. As he often stated, service to others is the rent we pay for our room here on earth. And I hope during your stay in Louisville this week, you get a chance to visit the Ali Center. It was a very, very special place for Muhammad, and it continues to carry Muhammad's legacy and inspiration. While the Ali Center certainly highlights the accomplishments of Muhammad's career, it is focused around those principles that centered and guided Muhammad throughout his life. They are confidence, conviction, dedication, respect, giving, and spirituality. Needless to say, it is a place that remains very dear to me. When Muhammad and I began working with Barry on the Ali Center here, we began to hear about the Charter of Compassion and the Compassionate Cities Initiative. It was a relatively new movement then, but when we became aware of its basic tenets, It lined up perfectly with the principles of Muhammad that became the guiding principles of the center. The belief that a compassionate world is a peaceful world. The belief that a compassionate world is possible when every man, woman, and child treat each other as they wish to be treated, with dignity, equity, and respect. The belief that all human beings are born with the capacity for compassion, something Muhammad believed with every fiber of his being, and that it must be cultivated for human beings to survive and to thrive. So the center worked initially with this initiative, and Louisville became one of the first and the largest U.S. city to adopt the Charter for Compassion. And Mayor Fisher, as you will hear in a moment, has taken the torch from Muhammad and made this a driving aspect of his work to make Louisville a model city of compassion. The city of Ali and Louisville, the city of compassion, are synonymous. But what exactly does it mean to be a compassionate city? Well, this certainly differs from one place to another, and the mayor will address that. But it's difficult, nonetheless, to teach people to be compassionate. It is not something one gets lectured on, and magically people change. But it is something that people can become inspired to become once a shining light becomes visible. For many, Muhammad was and continues to be that shining light, that beacon of hope and inspiration. This gets to the core and essence of Muhammad and his impact on community, his country, and his world. The nation has certainly changed its attitude toward Muhammad over the years. Those much younger than me are amazed, and often non-believing, to learn that at one time, Muhammad was one of the most hated people in the country by a good portion of its citizens. How could this gentle soul, this UN ambassador of peace, be that same person? He must have changed tremendously, right? Well, truthfully, Muhammad's convictions never changed. He stayed true to his principles and his core values as his light shone brightly as a beacon for others. Many of the nations saw Muhammad as an inspiration to African Americans who were taught to be ashamed of the color of their skin. Muhammad's light shone bright when he talked proudly about the beauty of his black skin. It saw Muhammad as an inspiration to millions who opposed the Vietnam War, and his light shone bright when he stood up for his beliefs, accepting the consequences of his actions. It saw Muhammad inspiring those with religious beliefs different from most of those in the nation, and his light shone bright when he courageously changed his name and embraced his religion. An inspiration to those concerned about human dignity, poverty, tolerance across the globe. And his light shone bright when he traveled to all corners of the world on humanitarian missions over the past 4 decades of his life as an emissary of goodwill, compassion, and hope. That light, that beacon, shone bright until he breathed his last breath. And perhaps Muhammad's inspiration shone most brilliantly that warm summer night at the opening ceremonies of the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, when he lit that very huge cauldron of light and stood tall and proud, despite the ravages of Parkinson's disease in clear view, as 3 billion people around the world recognize that they too can stand proud, tall, regardless of the obstacles they may be facing. Muhammad was and remains a shining, shimmering, radiant beacon of inspiration. You know, Muhammad always believed in himself and did what he believed was the right thing to do, following his core values and doing what he could do to help others every day, regardless of public opinion or its personal consequences. While many, even his initial detractors, have over the years come to understand, respect, and admire his conviction and dedication, in truth, he had never changed. He had never wavered in his passion and his beliefs. Whether hated or beloved, Muhammad always followed his heart. He would not be compromised. All he did, as he would say simply yet eloquently, was stand up for what he believed. Again, what does this have to do with being a compassionate city? Well, you as city planners and designers know much better than I. At the end of the day, it's all about people interacting and caring about others. This is what energized Muhammad every day of his life, even when it was difficult for him to do so physically. It's about designing places that show compassion about the people who live there, whether it's a village in Africa that lacks electricity or clean water, or neighborhoods in Louisville that have elevated rates of cancer. It's about giving our kids a healthier environment, as Greenheart is doing here in the Beachmont neighborhood. And it's about people celebrating their shared humanity. If Muhammad has a lasting impact, it's not because of his athletic accomplishments, although there were many. It will always be because of his ability to inspire people in many different ways. If one of these ways is to inspire them to be more compassionate toward their neighbors, toward others who may be struggling, toward their fellow citizens, then this is the true legacy of Muhammad Ali. The city of Louisville showed its shared compassion and humanity as it poured out its heart during the week of Muhammad's passing and his funeral. You may have seen some of the coverage on TV, but unless you were here in Louisville that week, it is hard to truly grasp what occurred. The entire city stopped. Not to extol Muhammad as its most famous native son, or even the most recognized human being on the planet. It was quite the contrary. It paid tribute to him for his humanity, which he shared with everyone, here as well as those who came in pilgrimage. Men, women, and children from every continent came to be present that week and pay their final respects. It could have been utter chaos, as I'm sure the mayor may have worried about. No amount of planning or security would have been enough to handle what occurred. But everyone in this city, without direction or advanced planning, treated Muhammad and their fellow citizens, the hundreds of thousands of people who came out, with enormous respect, compassion, and humanity. It was the embodiment of a compassionate community sharing a human connection, a shared experience. And isn't that exactly what any community should embody? Thank you. Thank you.